Hanging around after last orders, still so far from home.
Hi Leo, and welcome to your January 2025 horoscope. I hope you had a nice start to the year so far, and wanted to let you know that in January we don't have a lot of astrological events, but the ones that we do have are very, very significant. Before we get into it, I also wanted to let you know that I am hosting a workshop here in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Together with Atelier Clay, we're going to be hosting In Circle with pottery and astrology, where we get to sit down together, make a bowl using handmade techniques, while also having a discussion on the astrology for the year ahead. I'll leave the details for you down below in the comments in case you're interested. And if you'd like to register and join us on January 25th, make sure that you email this email that you see on the screen right now. And I'm really excited to hopefully meet some of you in person. We start off the month on January 3rd with an opposition between Mars and Pluto. For you, Leo, this is happening in your first and seventh houses. So you might be one of the zodiac signs that really feels this opposition. Specifically, you might be feeling some tension, maybe some power struggles, some frustrating or uncomfortable feelings when it comes to your relationships and how you show up in them, and who you are as an individual outside of your relationship as well. Venus has entered your 8th house or the sign of Pisces on this day. And it's actually a really good place for Venus to be in. Venus likes being in the sign of Pisces. So if you do need a little bit of help around this opposition, I would recommend really resting on that Venus in Pisces in your 8th. Really seeing if you can use vulnerability and intimacy to help you through this challenging time. 3 days later, on January 6th, Mars has retrograded so far back that it's no longer in Leo in your first house, but it's now in Cancer in your 12th house. Now that it's in your 12th house, you might find that this frustration or feelings of stop and go are also translating now when it comes to your spirituality. Maybe the practices that you've wanted to start are not going anywhere. Maybe you're finding it very difficult to access a mindful place when you're meditating or journaling or whatever your spiritual practices involve. Keep in mind that Mars will be retrograde there until February, so there is still quite a bit of time. But keep in mind that it is temporary and that hopefully sooner than later you will be able to get back on track with your spirituality. A couple of days later, on January 12th, we have the nodal shift into a new pair of signs. The North Node will enter Pisces and the South Node will enter Virgo. For you, the North Node is entering your 8th house and the South Node your 2nd house. So for the next 1.5 years, Leo, you will be learning to step more into the side of the 8th house, to be more vulnerable, to be more open to intimacy, sharing things with others, and step away from the shadow side of the 2nd house, being overly self-reliant, focusing too much on control, focusing too much on amassing a lot of material wealth, for example. For the sake of time, that's all I'll say about the nodal shift for now. But remember that I will do a live all about this shift. We're going to go through the general forecast in much more detail, and we'll go through all of the rising sign horoscopes as well. So if you want to learn more about what the North and the South Node will mean for you, Leo, then make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can catch the live when it comes out. The next day, on January 13th, we will have a full moon in Cancer in your 12th house. You might find this as an especially emotional moon, especially because this is happening in the 12th house in the sign of Cancer. And because Mars is quite close to the moon, you might find that you are repressing a lot of the anger or uncomfortable feelings that you're feeling. Just be very careful to not repress them so much that you explode. It might be a good idea to lean on any methods that you have that help you express your feelings. Journaling, dancing, exercising, whatever that may be. But overall, this full moon does signal that you are reaping what you sowed when it comes to spirituality. If you have been doing the work to set up a solid routine for yourself, you will see the benefits. However, if you have been maybe acting and not putting the time there, or acting out of wrong intentions when it comes to your spirituality, you will see the consequences of that as well. During this full moon, it's also important to note that Venus will be squaring Jupiter. And when we see a square with Venus and Jupiter, we see a tendency to overindulge. So I do want to caution you to just be careful not to overdo anything during this full moon, trying to comfort yourself by eating too much food or having too much alcohol or whatever it may be. Be very considerate and ask yourself, if I do this thing now, even though it will bring me comfort, will I actually regret that in a week from now? Then we reach a bit of a tough week, an uncomfortable week. This is actually a span of 5 days, from January 16th to January 21st. And this is because we are bringing up the same themes of that Mars and Pluto opposition at the beginning of the month. The reason the same themes are coming up is because the Sun will be in conversation with Mars and Pluto again, crossing over literally the same section where these two planets were just 2 weeks before. So first, on the 16th, the Sun will end up opposing Mars. Eventually, it will cross into the sign of Aquarius and conjunct Pluto. So all of this happens in the span of those 5 days. Again, you might see those same frustrations, power struggles you had with your relationship coming back up again during this week. And I gotta say that while at the beginning of the month, you could at least rely on your vulnerability and intimacy to help you through the difficult opposition, this time around, that's might not be as possible. This time around, during the span of 5 days, we have Venus conjuncting Saturn in your 8th house. So that means that you might especially find it difficult to be vulnerable, to really share your real feelings, to be intimate and open with your partner. And that might further make this more of a challenging week. And of course, what could help is looking back towards the beginning of the month. What happened? What did you learn from there? And see if you can apply that towards that 5-day stretch between the 16th and the 21st to really help you deal with the situation, but now in maybe a different way. And then we close off the month on January 29th with a new moon in Aquarius in your 7th house. Just 2 days later, on the January 31st, we also have Uranus going direct. So you will already be feeling that energy during the new moon. So while you're having this new fresh start in your relationship, I have a feeling it will be much needed, especially after that tough opposition with Mars and Pluto in your relationship house. You're having a new chapter, and you're much more likely to approach your relationship, start this new chapter in your relationship with a unique outlook, with a unique twist, maybe doing things different in your relationship than what society would expect. And that's just because this Uranus planet is going direct. And I will also add that towards the end of the month, you might be feeling a bit unblocked when it comes to your intimacy and vulnerability. Venus would have moved away from that conjunction with Saturn, and it's actually going to work towards a beautiful conjunction with Neptune and the North Node in your 8th house. And while that conjunction will happen at the beginning of February, and we will talk about it when the time comes, you will start to feel this beautiful energy already on the 29th during the new moon. And you will probably find it a lot easier, maybe even beautiful, to open up to your partner. So it's really, Leo, if I could summarize January for you, it would be going through some tensions with your partner, maybe needing to stand up for yourself and set boundaries. But as a result, you come out on the other side much more aligned to yourself, maybe even able to bond with your partner in a much more beautiful, meaningful way, because you've been through that struggle, because you have set those boundaries. So that is your forecast for January, Leo. Of course, your relationships are front and center, but we also did see, for example, your first house and your 12th house highlighted. So definitely needing to make sure that you express yourself, that you set boundaries as your own unique individual, and that you also pay a little bit of attention to your spirituality practices as well. But in general, I do think you will like the much easier energy when we get towards the end of the month, going into February. Thanks for joining me, Leo. And don't forget, on January 25th, I'm hosting a workshop here in Amsterdam with Atelier Clay. On January 25th, we'll get together, we'll build a bowl while we have a chat about the astrology of 2025. So I would love to see you there. I would love for you to join us. Check out all the details down below in the comments. Thanks, Leo, and I hope to see you again soon.